May the words of my mouth and the meditations of all our hearts be acceptable in your sight, O Lord, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. Please be seated. So just recently, for our family summer vacation, we went on a Disney cruise with my older brother and his family. My older brother has two sons, one that falls in age between my oldest two, and a second that's similarly aged to my third, Naomi. So on the cruise ship, they do two seatings for dinner. We booked kind of late in the game for Disney cruises, which apparently is you plan 10 years in advance. We had the second seating for dinner, therefore, which meant we didn't even get into the dining room until 8:15 each night. We all see where this is going. This made for a very late dinner for our two youngest kids, both of whom are regularly, God willing, in bed by 8:30 each night. Dinner on the cruise ship is also very long. It is 4 courses. So we were pushing their meal times, pushing their bedtimes, and making them sit and behave for an hour and a half. On top of this, our kid number 3 takes a medication that makes her not feel hungry for much of the day. So we spend many a mealtime and frankly many a day pleading her to eat. For this particular kid, especially for these particular meals, we basically cared 0% on what she ordered. The number one priority was calories. Put calories in your body. And the number 2 priority was stay seated in some version of composure that doesn't embarrass us. And number 3 was, of course, that we were all having a good experience together. So the younger of my 2 nephews, on the other hand, they have some nutritional concerns about his diet. So the priority for his parents was what he was ordering, and that broccoli, or whatever vegetable appeared on his Mickey Mouse-shaped plate each night, had to be eaten before the Mickey Mouse ice cream bar appeared on the table. I think we all know where this is going. In this scenario, exactly as we all can foresee and expect, the 2 8-year-olds figured out really quickly there was a difference in rules and a difference in parental priority, and immediately my young nephew exclaimed, mid-dinner the first night, "Naomi doesn't have to eat her broccoli. This isn't fair." He wasn't wrong. The standard was not equal. However, it is possible to be both unequal and be doing the right thing at the same time. Frankly, as adults, we see this play out dozens of times in kid-oriented interactions on a daily basis. One kid gets the later curfew because of their age or their trustworthiness. Another kid gets the larger portion of the family budget because the therapy costs just outweigh the soccer costs. You name it. Childhood isn't fair. But ideally, parents, while not trying to make things equal, are trying to make the right choices or the right boundaries or the right policies for the tiny humans God has graced them with. Regardless of our best intentions, when faced with the differences, kids often cry foul. But if we're honest with ourselves, even as adults, when we are actually in the midst of decisions that are nuanced and unequal based on the larger humans that we are faced with, we too cry foul. Interestingly enough, the place where we tend to feel the most entitled to have equal and that equal is the same as fair and right is our relationship with God. If I have to, you have to. If I have to live a certain way to be right with God, then you should have to make all those same choices too. We bristle at the notion that murderers can find redemption and salvation equal to our own. We can't fathom a God giving the exact same heaven to religious practitioners or, gasp, even atheists that are different from our own, with the same amount of love, with the same amount of warmth, and the same amount of welcome. Our funeral liturgy hints at these reassurances. We say over and over, sheep of your own flock, sinner of your own redeeming. I did the things. I deserve the reward. You didn't do the things. You don't deserve the reward. From the outside, it feels like the rules should be the rules. And it translates down to any number of individual lifestyle choices we make on a daily basis. If I do it, if I believe myself to be making the right choice, then if you're not making that choice, you're obviously doing it wrong. When the Pharisees and some of the scribes who had come from Jerusalem gathered around him, they noticed that some of his disciples were eating with defiled hands, that is, without washing them. Now, we no longer talk about washing hands as part of our ritual purity, but we have other things. From taboos about modesty or the right way to look or seem, to assumptions about how relationships and boundaries should work, to individual ditches that we have prioritized in our own morality. We know exactly who we think are in the category marked as defiled. The rules are clear, we feel. There are ways we, and especially you, should behave. See, Christians have a bad habit of shoulding on a lot of people. We should on ourselves. We should on our community. We should on people who are vulnerable and need us. We should on people who are struggling, sometimes in obvious ways and sometimes in ways hidden. And we should us all into believing that love is something that you earn and connection with God is something that you must deserve. Now, Jesus calls out the bias of the shoulders of his day, noting, for it is from within the human heart that evil intentions come. Fornication, theft, murder, adultery, avarice, wickedness, deceit, licentiousness, envy, slander, pride, folly. All these evil things come from within, and they defile a person. While he starts with the big 10 that feel very familiar, he moves very quickly into things that probably we all struggle with all of the time. Envy, slander, pride, folly. Well, Jesus, you've just described my inner monologue over the weekend. Frankly, a couple of these are a pretty accurate description of every single mom's night out I have ever attended. These are not the rules we like to focus on, however. We like the ones that are tangible and the ones that feel easy enough to check off the don't do list. And those tend to easily put us in the winner category. We like rules that are tangible. Washing your hands, aka doing the appropriate rituals or outward signs of virtue signaling, tangible. Not being a jerk in your heart, not tangible. Or so we think. Consider the list. Jesus marks these things as evil intent. And then he names things that either put us at odds with one another and or put our wants over the wants, needs, and feelings of others. Now, I don't know about you, but when I've been in a situation where, say, another parent is judging me pretty harshly, regardless of if they ever say anything to me, oh, I get it. Their heart is very clear in the circumstance. I've also been on the receiving end of people thinking an issue that we disagree on is way more important than the relationship that we've built together. And I've been at more than one meeting where there was a standoff between two parties. Sometimes I'm a part of one of these parties that are right, with no ability to see nuance, to rise above, or show humility. Sometimes the priority for one family is the calories, and sometimes the priority for the other family is the nutrients. Sometimes the priority for one Christian is the tradition and ritual, and sometimes it is the inclusion and making sure everyone in the moment is fed. Sometimes the priority is honing personal discipleship, and the priority for another might be just taking the moment to hear and actually feel that they are a beloved child of God, because maybe they have never felt it or they've lost sight of it. In our letter of James to a church of Jewish Christians who have been kicked out of Israel in the midst of deep and scary persecution, our letter writer focuses on living into the point of being Christian and not getting stuck in the dogma and the rules. He writes, "Be doers of the word, and not merely hearers who deceive themselves. If any think they are religious and do not bridle their tongues, but deceive their hearts, their religion is worthless." Doer of the word is not the same as doer of the rules. And doing the word is certainly not the same as shoulding it all over other people. It is doing at the principle. It is checking intent. It is checking the priority of our own discipleship, of our own rough edges. It is internal self-management, not micromanaging the faith and actions of others based on our own needs and assumptions. It does mean, however, meeting a situation with our best discipleship, our best scruples, our best gospel-inspired relationship-building compassion, kindness, and thoughtfulness without imposing it on anyone else. Our collect this morning began worship with "Increase in us true religion," meaning a religion of us living into our lip service and making it our heart service. We are not a faith of rules. We are a faith of relationship, of making the exception, of compassion, of actually doing the word. Amen.